Have you ever held a coin in your hand and wondered about its story? Well, get ready, because today we're rediving into a story of epic proportions, the dramatic rise and spectacular fall of Roman coinage. It's a tale of ambition, power, war, and an economic roller coaster that makes modern markets look tame. Let's travel back to the early days of the Roman Republic, around the 3rd century BC. Before they had the shiny coins we recognize, Romans were using lumps of bronze called as rude. Imagine going to the market and paying for your groceries with a chunk of metal you had to weigh. Not exactly convenient, right? The Romans thought so too. So they introduced the as signatum, bronze bars stamped with images, and then the game changer, the as grave, or heavy bronze. These were the first true Roman coins, massive, round, and cast rather than struck. They often featured the two-faced god Janus on one side and the prow of a ship on the other, a nod to Rome's growing naval power. These coins were a statement. Rome was here to stay, and it was getting organized. But the real star of the show arrived during the Second Punic War, the legendary conflict with Hannibal. Facing an existential threat, Rome needed a flexible, reliable currency to pay its soldiers and manage its vast resources. Enter the denarius. First minted around 211 BC, this small silver coin was a masterpiece of standardization. It was worth 10 bronze asses, hence its name, which means containing 10. The denarius was pure, reliable, and accepted everywhere. It featured the goddess Roma on the front, and the mythical twins, Castor and Pollux, on horseback on the back. This wasn't just money, it was propaganda. Every coin was a pocket-sized billboard proclaiming Roman strength, piety, and destiny. As Rome's legions marched across the Mediterranean, the denarius followed, becoming the ancient world's equivalent of the US dollar. It fueled an economic boom, connected a vast empire, and made international trade smoother than ever before. For hundreds of years, the denarius was the gold standard, or rather, the silver standard. When the Republic fell and the empire rose, the coins changed with the times. The faces of gods and goddesses were replaced by the face of one man, the emperor. Starting with Augustus, every emperor put his portrait on the coinage. This was a stroke of political genius. In an empire where most people couldn't read and would never see their ruler, the coins in their pockets were a constant, physical reminder of who was in charge. Each coin told a story. Did an emperor win a great victory? He'd mint coins showing captured enemies or triumphal arches. Did he want to emphasize peace and prosperity? The coins would feature goddesses like Pax or Abundantia. It was a direct line of communication from the emperor to his hundreds of millions of subjects. The aureus, a beautiful gold coin, was the high-value currency of the elite, while the silver denarius and bronze sestertius were the workhorses of daily life. For about 200 years during the Pax Romana, this system was the bedrock of imperial stability. The silver content of the denarius was consistently high, and people trusted its value. But empires, like all great things, faced challenges. And for Rome, the beginning of the end for its currency started in the 3rd century AD, a period known as the crisis of the 3rd century. The empire was under constant attack from barbarian tribes on its borders and torn apart by endless civil wars. Emperors were rising and falling so fast, it was like a deadly game of musical chairs. All this chaos was incredibly expensive. The emperors needed to pay more and more soldiers to defend the frontiers and secure their own power. But the state's income from taxes and mines was dwindling. So they resorted to a trick that governments have been tempted by ever since: debasement. What is debasement? It's simple. They started mixing the precious silver in the denarius with cheap base metals like copper and bronze. At first, it was subtle. Under Emperor Nero, the silver content dropped from nearly 100% to about 90%. A century later, it was down to 75%. But during the crisis of the 3rd century, the process went into hyperdrive. Emperors needed to mint more coins to pay the army, but they didn't have the silver. So, they'd melt down old, purer coins, add a ton of copper, and mint a huge number of new, debased ones. By the middle of the 3rd century, the coin that was still called a denarius, or its successor the antoninianus, was basically a bronze coin with a paper-thin silver wash that rubbed off after just a few weeks in circulation. The public wasn't stupid. People could see, feel, and even smell the difference. They knew the new coins were junk. This led to a complete breakdown of trust in the currency. Gresham's law kicked in. Bad money drives out good. People started hoarding the old, high-purity silver coins, refusing to spend them. Why would you trade a pure silver coin for goods when you could use a worthless copper one instead? The result was runaway inflation. Prices for everyday goods like wheat and oil skyrocketed. A measure of wheat that cost half a denarius in the good old days might now cost hundreds or even thousands of these debased coins. It was an economic nightmare. Soldiers, paid in worthless money, often revolted or simply took what they needed from the local population. The economy ground to a halt. Trade networks that had spanned the empire for centuries collapsed as people reverted to local barter systems. Why trade with a merchant from another province for coins that might be worthless by the time you got them home? Emperors like Aurelian and Diocletian tried desperately to fix the problem. They introduced new coins and enacted price controls. Diocletian A.S. edict on maximum prices in 301 AD set fixed legal prices for everything from eggs to haircuts, with the death penalty for anyone caught overcharging. But you can't fight basic economics with threats. The edict was a massive failure. Goods disappeared from the official markets and were sold on the black market at much higher prices. By the 4th and 5th centuries, the Roman currency system was a shadow of its former self. While the gold solidus, introduced by Constantine, held its value and became the standard of the Byzantine Empire, the small change currency for the masses was essentially worthless bronze tokens. For many ordinary people, the monetary economy had effectively ended. They were back to bartering, just like their ancestors centuries before. The collapse of a trustworthy currency didn't just cause economic problems, it eroded the very fabric of the empire. It undermined central authority, shattered trade links, and contributed to the slow fragmentation that would eventually lead to the fall of the Western Roman Empire. So the next time you look at a modern coin, remember the Romans. Their story is a powerful lesson in how crucial a stable, trusted currency is to the health of a society. The denarius wasn't just a piece of silver. It was the lifeblood of an empire. Its rise fueled Rome's golden age, and its collapse mirrored the empire's own tragic decline. Thanks for joining me on this journey through economic history. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into the past, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Let me know in the comments what ancient mystery you'd like us to explore next. See you then.